So welcome to week 2, session 2, Holacracy study. We will be doing a brief amount of review of the material in the week 2 videos, and then we'll go into simulation to practice some of what a tactical meeting can look like. But before we do that, let's check in, and the Holacracy check-in is really just what's got your attention, to call out any distractions to get present. It doesn't require a long story. And we're not in a circle, so I'll call on you. Joel, would you check in first?
Joel Free Falcon checking in. A crummy morning that slowly seems to be getting better, and I'm in.
Welcome. Mark, you're muted still.
Well, let me unmute first then. Now I'm distracted by my mute button. I'm focusing in, looking at the beautiful morning out my window here, and I'm ready to go. I'm in.
Thanks. Welcome. Vince. Could you speak up a little or move a little closer to the mic?
On with my microphone, but I'll get closer. Checking in with joy and fatigue. I'm in.
Thank you. Deb.
I'm in this morning. It's wicked cold here in New England. I'm glad to be inside and looking forward to the class with anticipation. I'm in.
Welcome. Thanks. Walt.
Curious George, I'm in too, a little early over here, but I wanted to have another taste of this, so I'm in. Good to see you, Deb, and all the other faces I saw before.
Greg.
I am checking in, distracted by a workload today, but I'm happy to be on the call as a fly on the wall and support, and I'm in.
Welcome, Greg, on the wall. Keith checking in, a little distracted. I'm a little worried about Gary and John McElroy both not being here, so they don't fall behind. And also, my morning is just so full. I'm having trouble kind of remembering what hat I'm wearing in the moment. So that said, I'm in, and welcome again. And so let us go into that popcorn pop quiz. Let's talk about what was in the video. What is the tactical meeting preamble? That's a jargon piece. What's the preamble? What does it consist of? And what is its purpose?
Is the purpose to build in an agenda?
We're not there yet. It's before the agenda building. It's the part at the beginning after the check-in. What happens in a standard tactical meeting at that point?
Review projects.
That's one of the 3 items in the tactical meeting preamble.
There's projects and there's
A checklist review and a project updates.
Checklist, metric, and project updates, yes. And please mute, yeah, thank you. What's the purpose of those things? What's the purpose of doing a checklist and a metric and a project update review?
It's to give everybody in the circle transparency for your role and your actions, and it's the accountability and communication about where it stands.
About where it stands, and then everyone in the circle can see what has been done and what hasn't been done, get a live, accurate picture of where the team's progress is at the start of the meeting. And that's before we call out the tensions and build the agenda, Joel, so that if something comes up, and I learn, oh, that thing wasn't done, or there's really low numbers, it might bring up a new tension that needs to be addressed during the meeting.
But Keith, isn't it true that it's not sort of, I'm going to yell at Deb that she didn't do it? It's that Deb is just saying this is where it stands, rather than Deb is going to be raked over the bed of coals, which might occur in another meeting, but not in this meeting, right?
Right. I mean, I might have a reaction, or and that's the tension. But it's not into kind of criticizing or going into the why even. I might have one clarifying question about a metric. Is that as of Monday morning, or was that as of Friday afternoon? Just to get the data. But there's no further discussion about the things that are reported during the project update or a metric checklist item. It's just getting the data. And then, if I have a live need that needs to be addressed in response to the data that gets surfaced, then that goes into the tension list. And then we build an agenda and process through the tensions. Understand what the purpose of that is, everyone? Nodding. Nodding, good. Walt, if you would mute or try to turn off that sound, that would be helpful.
That's all Richard Torres doing that. Can you believe that?
I do, but I also believe in your ability to mute. Thank you. What is attention? So what is attention in the way that we describe it in Holacracy?
I think of attention, as something that's happening where I can't do something in my role. There's something going on and I need something to do to complete my role.
I think that's a really good description. Anyone else have other words for that?
I like it when they say that it's a felt sense that happens between in the gap between what is and what could be.
Right. It is a felt sense. It's me, the soul. I'm sitting in a role or roles, and I know that something isn't working. There's a body felt sense, and it is between what could be or maybe ought to be, and in me fulfilling my purpose in this role. There's something blocking me from getting what I need in order to move forward. All of those things can be ways to describe attention. And I don't have to know what I'm going to do about that. I might have some ideas, but that happens in the meeting. Do I have to wait for a meeting to process attention?
No.
What can I do? What can I do?
Can you tell I have some emotional attachment to that answer?
Deb, are you sure?
I love emotional attachment.
Okay, so can I relate a little story? Keith in our meeting says, I want you to be Ferraris. So when someone in the meeting says, what happens when I can't find an email? That's okay to bring up. That can be attention, but it would probably be better to do that one-on-one with somebody who knows rather than take up the whole meeting's time. So, but I don't want to, I'm judging the people who bring that up. But the idea is you can bring up anything, but it's best in a large meeting to bring up tensions that are bigger.
And bigger can be, like it's truly huge for my role or me as a soul. It has a large priority for me. Or it can mean bigger in the sense that it affects more than one of us. That's really a good use of team meeting, is where, I'm bringing topics that address your role and your role and your role as well as mine. But I don't have to wait. If the meeting isn't until Monday and I have something that I need from Greg, well, there's nothing stopping me from just getting with Greg. Hey, do you have 5 minutes? Can you forward me that document? Whatever it is, that's addressing tensions in Holacracy. And sometimes I might need a little more assistance. I don't know exactly what to do about that. Maybe those go to the meeting, or even I could go one-on-one before the meeting, get advice, and But yes, I don't have to wait. I don't have to wait. I can. It may not be as efficient if I always do. So what does it mean to process attention in a tactical meeting, or what are some of the possible outcomes when you address tensions?
Well, we could, bring it up. We could get some advice. We could get some help. Whatever it takes to bring it up, to put it onto another meeting, to schedule for another time, to recognize that it's not maybe part of the tactical meeting, but it needs to go to a governance meeting.
When you say get help, What, I mean, give an example of that.
Well, maybe we were having a meeting right now, and I needed some help from somebody else on this particular meeting, and say, you know, I need somebody to provide this paperwork. And
Provide. So that's what, and Holacracy calls that an action. You know,
yeah.
Help can come in myriad forms. It can come from, like you said, getting advice or getting information. That's information in. It can come from getting someone else or help in doing a thing, taking an action. A really complicated action, Holacracy calls a project, which means basically more than one step towards one ending, one intended outcome. And then there's also, attention might be to give information, provide information. So you got information out, information in, actions that I take or someone else takes, projects, more than one action that I take or someone else takes. And that's the bulk of the outcome in a tactical meeting. One other that might be a result of a tactical meeting is attention. I might become aware, I might have, there is something I need to do today, but I might need to do something in governance. The fact finding or the discussion that came up in the tactical meeting made me aware that there is a need for an ongoing new accountability to be added to this role, or a new role, something that we know exists in the governance meeting, and the outcome of the tactical can just be to take that tension to the next governance meeting.
And Keith, one of the things that was helpful for me to learn when I started to learn this is that I didn't have to have my tensions right away when the meeting started. I could think of them during the meeting, or I could react to others' tensions with my own tensions, so that you're allowed to keep adding to the list, right?
That's really true. Whether you are in a room with a whiteboard or a flip chart and writing down tensions, and sometimes the facilitator can even help prompt that. Well, that sounds like a separate tension. Do you want us to capture that? Yes. And the secretary says, Deb, 1099s, whatever the topic is, just so that we capture it, and then we can get back to the current tension and be able to address it as needed, knowing that we'll get to that one as well. And we can build that agenda, this list of tensions. The facilitator gets to decide what order to go in. Now, we're doing a unique thing right now in the lead operating circle. Sometimes we'll have 24 or more tensions, and instead of just going through them, and some are like 2 seconds long, and some of them are really urgent and big, we're asking the team members to identify an urgency, right? This is like in a peer support group. Rate the urgency of your work. and they'll say 1 for the most urgent or 3 lesser urgent. And that allows me as facilitator, I'm currently facilitator of that circle, to kind of address the higher rated urgent topics first. And then, in case we ran out of time in theory. So, but the facilitator selects attention. And then how does the facilitator in a tactical meeting go about processing tensions?
Ask the person what he needs.
Exactly. Is it the facilitator's job to fix it? Right? It's to help bring up the ability for that person to address their own tension, to identify what they need. They may not know. The facilitator helps coach them through options, but it's, facilitating the person to get their own needs met. It's not, that's a trap, by the way, for fledgling facilitators. Fixers, I may have a great idea of what you need to do or what needs to happen. But it can kind of get in the way of a dynamic process that instead allows the individual to determine what their own needs are. Questions about how that works before we get into some simulation? So one of the other parts of the homework was to look at this spreadsheet. And in the spreadsheet, which I'm going to screen share in just a moment, we've got multiple tabs. The first tab is kind of a one-page summary of different meeting types and a place to record agenda items that a number of our circles are using a variation of this spreadsheet during facilitation of a virtual meeting just like this. And the facilitator and secretary work to capture agenda items and work through it. A lot of those circles, if you looked at some of the other tabs, have things like their checklist metric items right there so they know what needs to be reviewed, project list. The lead operating circle is using the GlassFrog software for the majority of the meeting recording parts. But that spreadsheet kind of is a pretty simple replacement and doesn't require all the circle members to learn the GlassFrog software. So on that tab, I asked you to look at that first tab briefly, and then to look at two tabs related to roles on the NWTA. One is about the greeting process roles, and the other was about midnight adventure roles. And to think about, those of you that have staffed trainings, that New Warrior Training Adventure, we thought that that would be a pretty familiar context for many of you to think about, oh, that's a role. This is a job that needs to get done. And what might I need if I were filling this role? And it's a live meeting, and to imagine some tensions. So I'm going to go to the screen share now. Boom. That's the one. Drag your all faces out so you don't see yourself twice and go into some dimensional breakdown where time and space conflate. And so on Tuesday, we played with the greeting roles. I'm going to just decide that today we're going to play with the midnight adventure roles, because I have the power and I'm driving the Ferrari. Y'all are passengers and you get to say things, but I'm still driving. So the Midnight Adventure is a multi-person, multi-role process on Friday evening at the NWTA. And I've got 5.5 guinea pigs. Greg gets to be, assigned to all the fill in the blank roles because that's his lot.
My life.
What I'm going to do is assign each of you to some of the core roles related to the Midnight Adventure process. And for those of you that have read those NWTA protocols, let me just familiarize you with what I've done here. That I've taken the name of the job, the protocol name. There was always a piece called empowering intent, and I've taken that either verbatim or with a little wordsmithing and inserted it into the role purpose. And then in the responsibility part of the protocol, I've taken all of those and made them action verbs ending in ing, which is how Holacracy wants you to phrase all accountabilities, and I've put those in the accountability for that role. So here, for example, is the materials coordinator. That's the role title, the role purpose from the empowering intent of the protocol. And then these are the jobs that the person filling that role is responsible to: checking the inventory, purchasing materials, et cetera, et cetera. So what I'm going to do for this process, I am going to assign Joel as, Joel is the safety coordinator. See, on Tuesday, I let people choose, and I've decided to be a little more bossy today. And Mark is the materials coordinator. And Vince is the Midnight Adventure coordinator. Deb is the front guide. Walt is Walt is a bandit. And Greg is a checkpoint. Okay. So, those of you that have familiarity and those of you that don't, you could take a brief moment and review what your purpose and accountabilities are related to that role. And now we're going to imagine ourselves here in a meeting about the planning of the Midnight Adventure. Say it's a few hours away, and we're going to be meeting and determining what needs to happen between now and the process. And I'm going to go into a dual personality mode where I am the facilitator and the secretary, and I'm going to capture some of the tensions, and I'm going to then facilitate capture actions. So I'm going to go through these one at a time, sole person, and say, hey, what's your tension? And you give me just a couple of word title of what your tension is. I'll capture it. We'll build an agenda, and then we're going to process the tensions. So Joel, do you have a tension about your role?
Safety glasses.
Safety glasses. This is perfect. You are excellent at this. Mark, tension.
Materials room.
Materials room or run?
Room.
Room. Vince, tension.
Are materials available and routing of the adventure?
Materials and route. So that sounds like two, and I'm capturing them both. Deb, do you have a tension?
A biggie. Possibly wrong soul for the role.
Wrong soul. Awesome. I'm going to call that assignment. Walt, do you have a tension? You might be muted and trying to talk.
How do I know who to slow down and how long to hold them?
So just a couple of words. What's a
Guidance on the roll.
guidance on roll? Excellent. Very well done. Greg, do you have a tension?
Can't find the tokens to give out.
Tokens. Okay. So, you might have more tensions. We can add more if we get through these and decide to keep practicing. What I'll do is I'll process the first few, and then we'll take a break and see if they're Q&A, and then we'll process some more. And this, in a meeting, can be a very rapid process. I'm going to engage you as one of those really stubborn facilitators that Brian Robertson says, the facilitator must be the more stubborn than the most stubborn participant. So this is a test.
Typecasting.
I hear you. Thanks for being playful. That's helpful. And this is going to be a live test, an example of what it might feel like to be facilitated in this manner. So, Joel, safety glasses, what's your tension and how can we help?
I already chatted with the materials coordinator, and they're on their way to the starting point.
So it sounds like, are you just communicating, providing information? Or is there anything else that you need?
Well, okay, I was at the starting point and the safety glasses weren't there. And between the time when I made this attention and right now, I already solved the problem.
So you've already addressed the issue. Issue has been addressed.
Yes.
Okay, so you're informing us that the safety glasses topic has been handled. Anything else that you need right now?
Nope.
Okay. Mark, what's your tension about materials room and how can we help?
My attention comes from the fact that the materials room is in disarray, so I'm asking for buy-in from all the staff to not go into the materials room or materials area and work with a materials team member.
Okay, so it's hard to ask for a not action or an action to not do things.
No, I said it. You must have missed it. I'm asking for buy-in that the staff work with materials team members as opposed to going into the room and throwing things around.
Okay, so it's an action for all the staff to work directly with the materials team member.
Right.
And so we'll do this by kind of a show of hands, or is everyone on the staff willing to accept that action request from the materials coordinator? Raise your hand if you're willing to do that. Yay. I'm not seeing all hands. Vince, are you willing to agree? Okay. Yes. Okay. Humans. So the staff has agreed to your action. And does that address your tension, or is there more?
It does indeed address it. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. Staff to engage. I'm just going to record that because I'm two people. Now, the secretary would likely have done that while I was yammering. Engage materials team before going into room, something of that nature. Vince, you have a tension about materials. How can we help with that?
Instead of logs, our team was handed an act.
So, is there something about that you want from the team? Or you conveying information? What can we? How can we help about that?
Where are the log bodies? Question.
Okay, so does anyone? Is there an idea who you want to know that information from? What role?
Mark.
Mark is a soul. Are you talking about the materials coordinator?
I am. Thank you.
Okay, so materials. Do you know where the log bodies are?
I do, and I'll get that information to you, Vince.
So if he provides that immediately after this meeting, will that address your tension about the materials?
Yes.
So you also had a tension about the route. What's the tension about that, and how can we help?
The co-leader who was supposed to follow can't find. This is a new location for me because I'm staffing out of town. So I need, oh, I know what I need. Oh, interesting. I need to up our meeting, change the time of the run-through meeting.
Change the time of the run-through meeting, and so you're providing information that the time has been changed? Or do you need something from a role?
I need something from a role to change the time of the meeting so we can.
I'm going to mute people who aren't speaking because that was a lot of background noise. So say again, Vince, you need something from which role?
What I need is, I need information from somebody who's not in this circle.
So and who is that role?
That role would be co-leader.
The co-leader. And so the person is not here, and you know that you need it from the co-leader. Are you willing to take an action to seek out and engage the co-leader for that piece of information? Because that person is not here to provide it for you.
Right, I get it. Well, I would, yeah, I'll do it.
Okay, so you will seek out and engage the co-leader regarding the meeting time. Does that address your tension for now?
For now, yes.
Okay, so let's just stop and see if there are any questions that we want to address before we keep practicing. Anything about how that process of engagement has gone? Going. It seems we lost Deb, so I'm going to go back to screen share and our Google governance. And I'm going to skip Deb for right now and go to Walt. Guidance on the role. What's that tension and how can we help?
Yeah, this is, since I'm a rookie here, I don't exactly know what I'm supposed to do for a bandit. So I need to talk to somebody that can explain what I'm supposed to do some more.
Okay. Do you have an idea of who or what role it is that you want that from?
Yeah, I think Vince is the coordinator of the team. So yeah.
So you asked to meet with Vince about what your role is to get guidance?
Yes.
Vince, as Midnight Adventure Coordinator, are you willing to meet with Walt in his role?
Not directly. We're going to be having a staff meeting and where all roles will be defined.
Thank you.
And knowing that there is going to be a meeting where your role will be defined and can ask questions there, does that address your tension?
Addressed, yeah.
Okay, anything else that you need? Well, anything else that you need?
I'm good.
Greg, you have a tension about tokens. What is the tension and how can we help?
The tension is they're missing. I think my tension's been met. If Mark has us go through materials room, I believe we'll find them. So met my tension.
So your tension, you've already addressed it between the tension, the issue is addressed.
Issues addressed and with materials.
Okay. We have plenty of time, and I'm gonna suggest that if you have some more with what you think might be difficult tensions, throw them out here and we'll add them to this agenda. I'm gonna look at you and use shame with my eyes. Other tensions.
Well, the only one that might not know this activity very well is not on the call right now.
Yeah.
Hey, make Crit do one. He's on now.
Oh, hey, Crit. Do you want to participate? Do you have a tension about the Midnight Adventure?
Hi there, can you see me?
I
I
can't
can't
see you, but oh, there you are. Yes, now I can see you.
I'm sorry, I just seem to keep getting the times wrong. I thought this started at 11.
No, 10:30 Eastern.
Yeah,
So we are in simulation of the Midnight Adventure as a tactical meeting.
yeah, and I do not have any questions from attention. Well, you know what? I do have one question. And it's, last time I did with the Midnight Adventure, the leader gives, at each stop, the leader gives his instructions, and there's always this situation of banter.
Okay,
We-
so I'm gonna, before you continue, I'm gonna assign you to a role so we know what role you're talking from.
How about elder?
The Elder does not have a role on the Midnight Adventure.
Okay.
You could be a checkpoint, you could be one of the guides, a rear guide, you could be a bandit, a safety team member.
Safety.
Okay, so you're on the safety team. We already have a coordinator, but you're on the safety team. And so what is it, how can we help with your tension?
Tension. I'm experiencing chaos.
Okay. And how can we help with that?
How can we reduce chaos and get attention of people to the process and to the man leading?
And do you have an idea about, it sounds like, are you asking for advice, information, and action from one of the other roles? How would you like to proceed with addressing that?
What can one say to assist in focusing attention to the process?
Right. You can identify an outcome. You could ask for advice, information, or an action, or you could ask for authority. Who has authority over that topic? And that's the role. And that might be the Midnight Adventure Coordinator. So,
Yes, you're correct. It would be.
so so that's what you could do. You could seek a meeting with the Midnight Adventure Coordinator. That would be an outcome. Or you could ask for advice. What we don't do is just discussion, kind of a theoretical or philosophical discussion on topics. We have clearly defined authorities, and those individuals can make their own decisions.
So if I understand, you're suggesting that before the process began, I would have that discussion with the Midnight Adventure Coordinator.
Not necessarily. You've brought up attention, and I, as facilitator, I'm saying you can ask for information. You can ask for advice. You can ask someone to take an action, or you can ask for a meeting with somebody who has authority over the area that you're talking about.
Got it. Thank you.
In this role play, in this simulation, would you like to meet with the Midnight Adventure coordinator to discuss the topic of chaos?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to record that safety team will meet with Midnight Adventure coordinator. Midnight Adventure coordinator, are you want to talk about that during the meeting that you have scheduled, the Midnight Adventure meeting?
Yes.
Okay, so we have that captured. He's agreed to the action. And does that address your tension for now?
Yes.
Okay. So I've got a tension here. Joel, you've got a tension about Girl Scouts, and how can we help with that? What is the tension and how can we help?
Somebody just told me that there's a troop of Girl Scouts stargazing out on the Midnight Adventure Trail.
Okay, so what would you like to have happen with that? You've got.
I need to find out who the camp coordinator is, and so that they can talk to somebody to have them go someplace else by the time we get started.
And what role are you in right now? I've got you assigned as whatever.
Safety.
Safety, and that is safety.
Right.
Is there an action that you would like to take or are asking someone else to take to address that?
I'm asking for advice if anybody knows who the camp coordinator is.
Okay, so when we open up to the whole team, does anyone have input advice for Joel about who the camp coordinator is?
I have it. I'll find it and I'll get that info to you.
So knowing that you're going to get that from Vince, would that address your tension?
If I have it by 11 p.m.
Will that time frame be workable for you?
More than adequate.
Okay. So hearing that he is going to give you the information on who the camp coordinator is by 11 p.m. so that you can deal with the Girl Scout people, does that address your tension?
Yes.
Okay.
So can I ask a question about the advice portion?
Okay, yeah. So let's just go into Q&A now. It sounds like maybe we've used up the simulation, and you've got a question about the advice part.
Yeah. So say Crit's wanting some advice on or discussion on that. Could, instead of saying I need some advice and meeting with somebody and having another meeting later on, could, under the advice, can I say I need some advice from the men on this council? Does anybody have any advice on how I should deal with this? And then open it for a discussion at that moment?
All the time. And in fact, that happens very commonly in our meetings. I need advice about this. From who? Anyone. Okay, does anyone have advice? And it starts popcorning in.
Okay.
But when it starts to become discussion-y, you know, the facilitator kind of keeps an eye on that and can go back to whoever brought up the tension. Is this helping? No, it's becoming consensus. I just want to know who. Okay, that the facilitator kind of keeps it from becoming a what if, an exception management, consensus building, but it can be advice right in the moment.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you. I mean, all the examples so far have doing something offline instead of something, in the moment. So I just wondered.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of hard to tactically when we're in fake simulation, right? I mean, like if this were a real instance, instead of Vince saying, "Oh, I have that somewhere, I can provide it to you," someone would probably say, "Yeah, it's Bob," and "Hey, Bob," Bob is likely to be right there. So a lot of these things that we're kind of going offline for in this simulation are often provided in the moment.
Got it.
Or it could be like, I have that in my folder in my cabin immediately after this meeting. Let's call the facility caretaker, right? So
Thank you.
yeah, it can be very in the moment. It doesn't always have to wait, like in this test case. Other Q&A about addressing tactical tensions and processing them.
So what do we do with the tensions that we don't get to in a meeting?
They carry over, or you could decide as a group to keep working if the meeting time was open-ended. I mean, potentially. It kind of depends upon the team's needs. Either keep addressing them now or say, okay, you're going to have to address this one offline. We're done. We're closing.
So if there's a tension that doesn't get addressed and it gets moved on to the next meeting, doesn't get addressed, and we just start saying, hey, this is escalating up to a high priority as the meetings happen. Well, I'm asking for a specific reason. What happens if one person has a tension and another person, say a stewardship chair, doesn't want the issue brought up? And so they just keep pushing it off.
They can't. They can't. So nobody can do that. If I have a tension, I can bring it up. I mean, so nobody can keep my voice shut, right? For example, if it isn't getting addressed because there's too many things on the agenda, I can say, hey, facilitator, will you do mine next? The facilitator still decides. But if somebody says to me right then there as facilitator, hey, do mine next, I'm going to do that one next. It's clearly been presented as an urgent case. And the facilitator has a duty to address the tensions that are brought.
And
so even if I'm wearing more than one hat, and I'm getting the idea that if I was the facilitator and the area steward, and I was like trying to prevent you from bringing this topic up, I would be out of compliance with the Constitution. If I was not addressing the tension that you had, and I should be, the facilitator should be reelected. Okay, then I have a tension that we need a new facilitator. And that goes to governance and a new election, new facilitator, and then we'll address that guy or girl is going to address your tension, because that's how holacracy works.
Wow.
Yeah, Joel,
Thank
you
you.
got a comment or a question about it?
Well, and theoretically, before we started this process, didn't we do a round and decide which ones are the most urgent?
Potentially. You know, I mean, we talked about how the lead operating circle is experimenting with that. But since we only had 6, I knew I was going to get to everything.
Okay, right.
Right, because I'm pretty aware of how quick a resolution, especially on these simple examples that we've got here, are going to take. But if you know, there's something politically charged, and it doesn't mean that the political charge is going to be there. Those people may have strong opinions to the opposite of whatever you want but if you have a tension, it will be addressed. It may not be solved in the meeting. That's not the purpose of the meeting. It's to determine what will happen next about that tension.
Okay.
You seem a little eyes glazed over. Does that answer your question there, Walt?
Yes, I'm good. I'm not only good, I'm absolutely excited. That is what I wanted to hear. That was a real life situation, and I didn't know how to deal with it. And outside of holacracy, so holacracy has given me an opportunity to deal with stuff that have been hugely tension driven for 3 years, and people didn't want to address it.
You know, those things still exist. You know, just because we adopt a practice and a structure that's different doesn't mean those politically charged things don't still exist. I may still have a hesitancy to bring up that politically charged topic, but it's my duty. Here's the other part of that. It's not only the facilitator's duty to address the tensions that are brought, but as a circle member, as someone filling the role, I have to address the tensions that I feel in my roles. And if I'm not, then I'm not complying with the Constitution that I've agreed to comply with, right? So it's not just whether it's a comfortable setting or a comfortable means to address something that may be difficult to address. I must address this. And when I don't, I'm failing.
The situation was, well, we're not going to deal with it because we want everybody to get along, or we don't want people to think that you're my way or the highway or anything. It's like, it's my job description. I need to be able to do this. I need to deal with this. It has to be answered. And I had no way to do anything. So this may not be the be all and end all, but it's definitely better than
pretending.
hierarchy. Yeah.
Right. So the actual result may still not please everything about what I think the result might be.
But
But
it's
the
something.
addressing of it, there's not a lot of skeletons in the closet
Mhm.
in a team that's really using holacracy.
Okay, well, you know what I've learned on that issue, which I think is critical because we're still dealing with human beings, is that when it's not addressed, I can then add attention of, this isn't getting addressed. I want to inform you of what's going to happen in terms of the impact of how I do my job and how I think it will affect you. Reactions. So in other words, I have attention. I can't get a certain thing done in my job. Nobody wants to help for whatever reason. And then I say, this is going to be the result. And then at least I've informed people. They now know that this is not going to get done. I can't do it. It can't get done. And then they can all think about it, come back next week. But that's how I feel some relief, which is, then it's not a mystery anymore. No one wants to deal with it? Okay, here's the result.
Yeah, thank you. At least it's transparent then. At least it's on the table.
It is. A holacracy relies, when we think about the absence of a hierarchical boss type of figure who would make decisions if there were politically charged things, even though it may not be my way or your way, but someone's going to decide. So without that person being there, and then an additional heavy reliance on every team member accepting that higher level of responsibility, not just for my gig, but the gig of the whole team, right? I've got to serve the circle's purpose, not just my purpose. And when we accept that responsibility, it means a willingness to address the uncomfortable tensions.
But Keith, can you help on that in terms of the lead links role? Let's say something came up and I said, oh, by the by, I have attention, I can't process any payments anymore. I mean, that would be huge. And something huge. What would the lead link do in that case when you say there's not hierarchy? There is some hierarchy. Could the lead link say this is just a big crisis and I'm going to do X? What would happen then?
Well, we could all. So in week 4, we're going to talk about individual action. At any time, all of us are empowered to take an action, even that are outside my current authorities. If the shit is going to hit the fan and I don't have time to get the right approvals and permissions, I can do a thing, right? The lead links kind of retaining some aspect of executive authority is it about the assignment of roles. And if you or I were experiencing a continual barrier that was about someone else's lack of fulfilling the accountabilities that they were assigned, the lead link could say, okay, Fred, you're out of there. Mary, you're in. And then if maybe Mary will get the job done and the barrier would be removed. Now, that may create its own problems especially if it's an employee, even if it's a volunteer. But that's the one thing that the lead link could still kind of intervene with. But anybody on the team can use individual action to intervene in an urgent situation, even outside my assigned authorities. Go ahead, Crit.
I do have a question in that vein. An exact vein of wanting to get something done, but not in terms of a group not wanting to deal with an issue, but in terms of a group or people not wanting to work with an individual.
Right.
How does this facilitator work with that type of thing?
Well, that's really hard. That's really hard in a hierarchical context as well as this context. In a hierarchical, I could say, hey, boss, I've tried working with Fred and I don't know what to do. I might get help on how to deal with that person. I might not. In this context, there isn't that. I can ask for advice from the lead link. I don't really know how to deal with Fred. Do you have advice? I can ask for advice from others. Ultimately, the responsibility is on me to figure out a way to work with this person or to choose to leave. Now, if enough people had that experience and were providing active feedback to the lead link, hey, this person is really not working out. They're obstructive, they're not getting their, whatever it is, then the lead link is probably going to be has the responsibility to make an assignment decision. I mean, that's the closest parallel that we can find between this and a boss that says you're fired.
I understand. Actually, that's a wonderful expression you just used, an assignment decision. I like the expressions that you're sharing here in terms of, I'm going to categorize them as non-shaming and non-blaming. So I like the expressions you're sharing. In this same vein of scenario, you gave a scenario of, say, an individual not working within the group. In that same vein, how about the group? Well, I'll express it as the group behaving badly towards an individual.
You know, yeah, I think the canary in the coal mine phenomenon is present, I think, in any team, in any construct. I may be one of the more sensitive people on the team in this instance, and it might be you in another instance. And I could become aware of, wow, the team is really giving a hard time to so-and-so. Somebody becomes aware, even if it's me that I'm experiencing it. I, as a circle member, have a responsibility to the circle's well-being. And if that's happening, then it could be, hey, the circle is not working out well. And here's how it's manifesting. It's that we're not treating Fred very well. You know, I think ultimately it's responsibility at the individual level to say this is not in alignment with our circle or team purpose. We must do a better job at treating each other better. And here's an example of where it's not going very well. Yeah, that's hard, but it is. We are all responsible. Go ahead, Deb.
One of the things I can't remember who told me when I started with the Holacracy was that MKP's training around interpersonal conflict comes into play. Where Holacracy really doesn't handle things well is interpersonal conflict, because we're supposed to eliminate it when we come into role. So my understanding is that we, and I don't know how to do any of these things, but you do, go offline and practice the training that men have had in terms of conflict resolution. Is that how you view it?
Yeah, you know, we actually have more tools here than the standard Holacracy team might, unless they already have an organizational or team culture that focuses on things like that we learn in our peer support groups: emotional intelligence, clear, powerful communication, direct communication, the clearing model, and the intent versus impact is a model that we're using in the lead operating circle when things do have an interpersonal flair that get in the way of productivity in the role, or just there's a discomfort level that gets manifested. And we use that as a means to address the interpersonal side. And you know, it's not easy, but it is. There are other tools available that we can make use of, but no tool will ever completely remove that. Sometimes it's just not the right fit. You know, I may not like the way this organization works, or the way that the members on the team driving the organization work. And in that instance, it's on me to choose, okay, this isn't working for me, so I'm going to go.
I hear that, and I agree. I'll simply share that I've observed. My opinion is conflict resolution. I see it within Holacracy. I don't see it within MKP. And in terms of the conversation that just occurred,
yeah,
I see a lot of tools not being utilized. I'm in. Thank you.
Agreed. These are excellent questions, and I know that you know, there's live need for this sort of thing in probably every working team, committee, council, area council, NWTA staff that we have interpersonal conflicts, and it's difficult to decide how to address those. Holacracy at least wants you to do something about it. It may not provide everything that works in every instance, but it says that the responsibility lies with me, and as a circle member. And we can talk maybe a little bit more about this when we go to our in-depth Q&A in week 4, but we are going to close now for today. And I'm going to ask for a closing reflection, a checkout that says something about something that struck you during the course of the meeting, either about the tactical process or even the deeper discussion that we did. And I ask you to keep it a little brief if you can. And I'll start with you, Joel. Do you have a checkout?
Yeah, Joel, checking out, observing that with different participants on the call on Tuesday compared to today, it had a different sort of a flavor to the meeting, and just noticing that, and I'm out with that.
Thank you. Mark?
Yeah, Mark, checking out with, see, my reflection is, it's kind of just a general sense. I wouldn't call it attention, though. It's a feeling that I'm kind of receiving a lot of this into my body as far as how Holacracy works, and it feels good. And I really sense that today. I'm out.
Thank you, Mark. Vince?
Checking out with joy, what I'm observing is where things seem to be, where Holacracy and our MKP processes seem to dovetail, and then they don't. And appreciating both. I'm out.
Great, thank you. Walt?
Yeah, I'm my enthusiasm and excitement is growing. I'm getting a sense that so many of the issues that have made my job very difficult to work with in an organization of volunteers and such, this is a way to deal with that in a good way. So I'm seeing this as a beautiful, wonderful tool that I'm excited about. Wow, this is exciting. I'm out.
Thank you. Deb?
I'm out with just real deep respect and admiration for the men on this call, and the passion and commitment to the Mankind Project. And, you know, the mission is sacred, and every time I'm on these calls, I can feel even greater respect for that mission. I'm out.
Thank you. Greg?
I'm liking what's happening, what I'm seeing, and laughing inside right now. I'm thinking about this being at the North American Leader Body conference this week, and I think it would be totally effective. So I'm just thinking about buy-in. I'm in. And out.
Welcome. Yeah, thanks. Crit?
Okay, checking out. Actually feeling very happy with today's session and getting a greater understanding from the session of how the phrasing that I'm learning can be very non-shaming and non-blaming, and I believe much more collaborative. I'm out.
Yeah, thank you. Jarvis Dog, I also feel excitement about some of the possibilities here. It does remind me, though, that human part of me that wants other people to change is still present, regardless of the construct or the means in which we interact, and that I can only be, responsible for my end of any interaction. So Holacracy kind of reinforces that it's the individual's responsibility. Can't always fix everything, can't fix or change others. I can ask for what I want, and Holacracy does empower me to do that ask. It doesn't always deliver it on my behalf. Have a great week, and I will send out homework assignment at the probably by mid-afternoon. Thanks very much.
Could you send out the link or something to the Constitution too, so we can take a look at that?
Yeah, I will. Good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll include that.
Thanks.